In the quiet dawn of existence, before the clamor of kingdoms and the weight of written laws, there was a garden. Here, a divine breath stirred the dust, and within that sacred soil, the first human heartbeat echoed the rhythm of its creator. The creation of Adam and Eve was not merely an event. It was the moment eternity bent down to touch the earth, and the story of us all began. God formed Adam from the ground, shaping him with divine intent, but life truly began with a breath, a whisper of spirit and purpose blown into his nostrils. Yet, in the perfect solitude of Eden, God declared, "It is not good for man to be alone." And so, from Adam's own bone, from his very flesh, a companion was formed. Not from dust this time, but from union. Her name was Eve, and their bond was the first covenant, the foundation for every family that would ever follow. Imagine being the first to feel the sun's warmth, to taste the sweet water of Eden's rivers, to know love in a world without precedent or comparison. Their lives were a tapestry of firsts, woven in perfection. If this story is already pulling you in, please subscribe to our channel and leave a like to support more narratives like this. In time, their family grew. 2 sons were born into this untouched world, their names destined to echo through the ages, Cain and Abel. Though born of the same parents, their spirits charted different courses. Cain became a man of the earth, his hands stained with the soil he tilled, his life a labor of drawing sustenance from the ground. Abel, in contrast, was a shepherd, a guardian of flocks who lived under the vast, open sky, nurturing life through gentle care. As they grew, both brothers brought offerings to God, a gesture of gratitude and devotion. Cain presented the fruits of his labor, the harvest he had wrestled from the fields. Abel brought the very best of his flock, the firstborn, choosing the richest and most valued parts as his gift. The scripture tells us the Lord looked with favor upon Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his gift there was no such acceptance. Why? Was the gift itself flawed, or was it something deeper, a subtle dissonance in the heart of the giver? Many believe the difference lay in the intent. Abel's offering was one of reverence, given with a full and loving heart. Cain's was an obligation, a contribution that lacked the fire of true sacrifice. His heart, once filled with the pride of his work, began to curdle with rejection. Disappointment hardened into jealousy, and his face fell, shadowed by a shame he could not name. God saw the storm gathering within him and reached out, not with condemnation, but with a warning and a choice. "Why are you angry?" he asked. "If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." It was a chance for redemption, a call to rise above the darkness. But Cain did not listen. The whisper of sin was louder than the voice of God. The cry of blood and the mark of exile, the silence that followed, was heavier than any sound. Instead of seeking healing, Cain let the darkness in his heart fester and grow. He invited his brother, Abel, out into the field, perhaps with words of kinship, a suggestion of shared work under the sun. But there, far from the gaze of their parents, surrounded only by the silent earth, the unthinkable happened. Burning with an envy that blinded him, Cain rose up against his brother and struck him down. The soil that had once given him fruit now drank the blood of his own kin. It was the world's first murder, and with it, a shadow fell across the future of mankind. Even then, in the face of such a profound transgression, Cain did not come forward. He chose silence. He chose deception. When God's voice came to him, echoing in the terrible stillness, the question was not one of ignorance, but an invitation to confess. "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain's reply was cold, defiant, and eternally infamous. "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" Those words revealed a heart that had not only committed murder, but had refused the responsibility of love itself. But God hears what is buried. "What have you done?" the Lord replied. "Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." That cry demanded justice. The ground that Cain had worked would now become his enemy, cursed and hostile. He would no longer be a tiller of the soil, but a restless wanderer, unmoored and without a home for the rest of his days. For the first time, fear broke through Cain's hardened exterior. "My punishment is more than I can bear," he cried out, fearing that others would find him and kill him in vengeance. He who had shown no mercy now begged for it. And in an act of profound and mysterious grace, God granted it. He placed a mark upon Cain, a divine sign of protection that warned any who might find him not to harm him. It was a seal of both consequence and preservation, a paradoxical symbol of judgment and mercy intertwined. With this mark upon him, Cain left the presence of the Lord. That phrase carries a chilling finality, not just a physical departure, but a spiritual severing. He journeyed east of Eden to a place called the Land of Nod, a name that means wandering. And it was there, in that land of exile, that the next great mystery of his story begins. The forgotten daughters and the whispers of a wanderer, cannot build a world alone. And in the silence of the scriptures, a question breathes, growing louder across the centuries. The book of Genesis simply states, Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. But who was this wife? Where did she come from? The text offers no name, no history, as if she simply appeared in the land of Nod. This small, overlooked detail has fueled centuries of debate. Cain himself provides the first clue. When he received his punishment, his fear was not of solitude, but of others. "Everyone that findeth me shall slay me," he lamented. Who were these others he feared if his parents were the only other people alive? God's response, the protective mark, validates this fear, implying the existence of others who could pose a threat. The most widely accepted explanation is found not in speculation, but in a deeper reading of the biblical text itself. Genesis 5:4 plainly states that over the course of his long life, Adam begat sons and daughters. Though their names are lost to history, their existence is affirmed. The early chapters of the Bible are not an exhaustive census. They are a focused narrative, highlighting the lineage of spiritual importance. The daughters of Adam and Eve, though unnamed in the canon, were essential for the continuation of humanity. It is most likely, then, that Cain married one of his own sisters, or perhaps a niece from one of his other siblings. While unsettling to our modern sensibilities, marriage between close relatives was a necessity in humanity's infancy. The laws prohibiting such unions would not be given by Moses for more than 2 millennia. In that early world, it was the only way to fulfill God's command to be fruitful and multiply. Abraham himself would later marry his half-sister, Sarah, a union that was blessed and produced the child of promise. Ancient, non-canonical texts like the Book of Jubilees, sometimes called Little Genesis, sought to fill in these silent spaces. While not part of the official Bible, this text was respected in many ancient traditions and offers a fascinating glimpse into how early readers grappled with these questions. The Book of Jubilees gives a name to Cain's wife, Awan. Her name, depending on its roots, can be translated as either vice or power. What a striking duality. Imagine being Awan, a daughter of the first humans, now bound to the world's first murderer, a man marked by God. Did her name reflect the burden she carried, or the silent strength she possessed to help a wanderer build a city and a future from the ashes of his past? She is a forgotten thread, but without her, the tapestry of Cain's lineage would have ended in the dust of Nod. The long ages and the fading echo of Eden before the world learned to count its days in hurried breaths, time itself moved differently. To understand the world of Cain and his wife, we must step back and gaze upon the staggering lifespans of those first generations. It was an age that feels almost otherworldly to us now, a time when a single human life could span nearly 1,000 years. Adam himself, the first man, lived for 930 years. Imagine the weight of that time, 9 centuries to carry the memory of Eden, to witness generations of his children spread across the earth, and to feel the sorrow of that first sin echoing through the ages. His son Seth lived 912 years, and the patriarchs that followed continued this pattern, their lives stretching like great, ancient trees. The longest of all was Methuselah, Noah's grandfather, who lived for 969 years, his life ending just before the Great Flood reshaped the world. What allowed for such extraordinary longevity? Many believe the earth itself was different then, closer to its original perfection. A protective atmospheric canopy, a more stable climate, and a purer environment may have shielded early humans from the decay our bodies now endure. Others point to a pristine human genome, uncorrupted by the thousands of years of mutation and degeneration that would follow. They were simply closer to God's original design. But this era of long life was not destined to last forever. Just before the flood, God declared, "My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years." It was a divine decree, a shift in the rhythm of human existence. After the flood, the lifespans begin a steady and dramatic decline. Noah lived 950 years, but Abraham lived 175, and Moses, the great lawgiver, lived to be exactly 120, a direct fulfillment of God's words. This shortening of life may have been a mercy, limiting the time one sinful person could influence the world. Or perhaps it was to shift humanity's focus from the length of days to the weight and purpose within them. In those long, early centuries, Adam and Eve's family had ample time to grow. Daughters and sons could have numbered in the dozens, spreading out and forming the very first communities. By the time Cain took a wife, whether after years or even decades of wandering, the world was no longer empty. It was filled with his own kin. The two roads, a legacy of shadow and light from the heart of that first family, two rivers began to flow, carving different paths into the soul of mankind. These were not just family trees, they were spiritual destinies, representing the two choices that have confronted humanity ever since. Cain, the man of the earth, and his wife Awan became the architects of a worldly legacy. He, the restless wanderer, defied his curse by building a city, naming it Enoch after his son. It was the first act of creating a permanent, organized society, a testament to human resilience and innovation. His descendants became craftsmen, musicians, and builders, pioneers of civilization, but their story is one of moving further from the presence of God. In contrast, there was Seth. After Abel's death, Eve was given another son, and she named him Seth, meaning appointed. She saw him as a restoration of the righteous line that had been broken. The book of Jubilees names his wife as Azura, a name associated with the heavens, purity, and holiness. Their union was a turning point. Their lineage represents a return to God, a conscious choice to walk in reverence. It was during the lifetime of their son, Enosh, that the scriptures say men began to call on the name of the Lord. This was not just prayer. It was the birth of formal worship, an open acknowledgement of humanity's need for God. This was the line of Enoch, who walked so closely with God he was taken directly into heaven without tasting death. And it was this line that produced Noah, the man chosen to save humanity from the flood, a man whose faith became an ark in a world drowning in chaos. The descendants of Cain built a world. The descendants of Seth built a relationship with God. One lineage is marked by human achievement and spiritual distance. The other is marked by worship, obedience, and divine salvation. And in the heart of both stories stand two forgotten daughters, Awan and Azura, whose quiet presence as wives and mothers allowed both legacies to unfold, the unanswered question and the purpose of silence. And so we arrive at the edge of what is known, where history fades into faith. While ancient texts like the Book of Jubilees offer us names like Awan and Azura, we must remember they remain outside the recognized canon of Scripture. They are fascinating, but they are not doctrine. The Holy Bible was never meant to be an exhaustive record of every person who lived or every event that occurred. Its purpose is not to satisfy every historical curiosity, but to reveal the divine message of salvation, justice, and love. God, in His wisdom, has shown us what is essential for our souls. The silence in the text is often as meaningful as the words. It invites us not to speculation, but to trust. As the prophet Isaiah wrote, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." So when we ask, who was Cain's wife? The answer unfolds into a much larger story. She was his sister or his niece, born from the family of Adam. She was a daughter of Eve, carrying the same seed of life and hope. She was a silent, unnamed figure in one sense, but in another, she was the essential bridge that allowed a broken lineage to continue. Without her, there would be no city of Enoch, no descendants of Cain to contrast with the righteous line of Seth. Her story and the story of all the forgotten daughters reminds us that history is held together by quiet threads. Their legacy is not in a name written in a text, but in the blood that flows through humanity, in the continuation of the story itself. Faith is not built on knowing every answer, but on trusting the one who wrote the story. It is about learning to walk with God, even when the path is not fully illuminated. It is not about knowing everything, but about knowing Him. Thank you for diving into this story with me. If it moved you or helped you unwind, subscribe for more immersive journeys like this. Take care, and may a quiet peace be with you.